Hello, welcome to the forecast for December 2022. I'm Martha Angelini. I'm a spiritual intuitive and communicator, and what I do is I download information from my group of spiritual advisors. The information I get is a global bird's eye view of the themes and energies that we can expect to play out or experience throughout the month. But it's delivered in a way that we can actually work on and work consciously with as individuals. So with that, let's get to the forecast. First theme I want to talk about is balancing inner and outer. So on the heels of November, which was all about revelation, we are now sitting in a position where things that may have been true for us before are no longer true, or things that weren't true for us are now true. This can actually bring up a bit of conflict between the inner and outer, especially if we're talking about relationships, situations, or goals that we had that are no longer in sync with who we are now or what is true for us now. That brings up the next theme, which is realignment. We've effectively been unplugged, right? We are no longer in that state of who we felt or thought we were. And now we have the opportunity in December to realign, to find out how we want to plug back in more authentically and more consciously. So how we balance our inner and outer and our realignment brings up our next theme, which is assessment and discernment. So both words were given to me, so I'm assuming both words are important. And how I think that they are important is the assessment piece is looking at our outer conditions, how things are in our lives, the situations, relationships, and goals. And we need to assess that through the context and with the information or through the lens of the information that we had learned in November. Then with that, we need to make some discernment. We have to figure out, with this new inner landscape that we have, what do we want to keep? What do we need to let go of? So we're going to be working with assessing what is going on in our outer as well as our inner, and discerning how we can work with that outer and inner landscape with this new information. Which now brings up the energy that we'll be experiencing through this month, which is movement. However, it's not going to feel like forward motion, certainly not initially. It's actually going to feel like a seesaw. The image I got was of a person standing in the center of a seesaw with one foot on one side and the other foot on the other side, sort of like testing the weight between each side to find that center of balance. And that's actually the movement that we're going to be feeling as we go through this assessment and discernment process through inner and outer and realignment. We'll feel and see that movement as we go through and look at the value systems and beliefs and choices that we made that are now no longer aligned, and how we might want to realign them through that process of assessment and discernment. It's important to, at this point, just say that it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's why we're assessing and discerning, because there are things that we can keep, and there are things that we may need to make some minor adjustments to, and there are some things that we will need to let go of. But it's not taking everything and saying, I don't need all of you anymore. That's not true. So that's what we want to go through and find that balance between that. I want to talk a little bit more about the quality of this assessment, discernment, realignment process, because it's not going to feel like introspection. It's going to feel bigger than that. In fact, I'm actually going to give you a direct quote from what they said about that. It is beyond introspection. It is beyond looking. It is a shift of energy from stagnation to movement. After revelation, the need to shift, to move, is there. It is the shifting and building of energy that allows for change to happen. So how I interpret that, and it's not a perfect analogy, but I'm just going to go with it because it's really the only one I could come up with at the time. It's like the action potentials that we get in a firing neuron. A neuron starts at a resting state. Then what happens is a transmitter comes and changes the permeability of the cell itself to allow, well, in this case, sodium ions, but allow information to come inside of the neuron that changes the polarity. You get enough of those coming in, and what you get is you reach a threshold. Once you reach that threshold, all of the gates come open, and then a nerve impulse is transmitted from one end of the neuron to the other and allows for, say, the contraction of a muscle. The new information we received in November is a bit like the transmitter that came in and opened ourselves up. We became more permeable to information that came through and changed our inner landscape. So now we're in this place of building. So we're allowing more and more and allowing the inner and outer to change and become balanced so that we can build that energy and that momentum that will then bring us to a point of change, which we are not currently in, and December is that time of building. So now I'd like to share a bit of the advice that they gave me to help us work with all of this information that that's going to be coming at us, as well as the assessment, discernment, realignment process. They actually gave me more advice-like information than I've received in the past, so I thought it was important to include it here. So pardon me, I am going to read it just to make sure I've got the quote right. Stay open, stay curious, reconnect carefully, guided by the inner revelations and what you want to do differently. The tendency will be to go back to the familiar, stop, assess, and look to other possibilities. Tap into the energy of shifts. Be patient with yourself and others. Build the inner energy and momentum. Build it with compassion with yourself and others as the assessment continues. Hold judgment. You are neither here nor there. You are not in a holding pattern, but your information is incomplete. So December looks like we're going to be spending a lot of time assessing, discerning, realigning, and balancing so that we can build the energy that we need to make the changes that we know we need to make from the revelations we got in November. Thanks very much and have a great month. I will see you next month.